I watched from the balcony of the country club as the flashing red and blue lights swarmed the driveway. The air, usually filled with laughter and clinking glasses, now buzzed with a different kind of energy, tense, charged, electric. Guests in tuxedos and evening gowns gasped, gripping their champagne flutes like lifelines. The crowd parted like waves around the center of the storm, my son-in-law, Marcus. He was on his knees in the gravel driveway, the shimmering fabric of his $5,000 tuxedo crushed and dusty, handcuffs cold and unyielding on his wrists. He screamed, frantic and raw, eyes wild beneath the flashing lights. Then, his gaze landed on me. In that moment, I was the calm eye of the hurricane. I did not smile. I did not wave. I just took a measured sip of water and checked my watch. 8:45 p.m. Exactly on schedule. Robert. Help me. Tell them, his voice cracked with desperation, pierced the night. But the truth was, there was nothing I could say. Because I was the one who had sent them. Let me tell you how we arrived at this moment, because this story didn't start with a flashy arrest at a lavish party. It started quietly, almost innocently, on an ordinary Tuesday in November. For 30 years, I worked as a forensic auditor. My life's work was combing through spreadsheets, contracts, bank transfers, and tax forms, hunting down the tiny mistakes, the subtle inconsistencies that hid colossal lies and stolen millions. I was a ghost in the machine of corporate greed, unraveling threads others dared not touch. I thought I was done with all that. I was ready to retire in peace. But fate has a way of dragging you back in. That morning, I went to the bank to withdraw some cash, a small amount, for a surprise birthday trip to Italy with my daughter Elena. She was turning 30, and I wanted to give her a gift she'd never forget. Across from me sat Mrs. Gable, the bank manager. Her face was pale, hands trembling just slightly as she spoke. "Mr. Sterling," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "The transfer, it was declined." I stared at her, disbelief rising. Declined? I laughed, because there was no way. There's almost $500,000 in that account. It's my life savings. The money from selling my company. She turned the screen around. The number glowed in red. -$4,000. How? I asked, voice cold and steady. Mrs. Gable explained. 14 transfers, all over the past 3 weeks. Withdrawals, payments, wire transfers. All approved with my fingerprint, my PIN, through the bank's mobile app. But I hadn't touched my phone. I was lying in the hospital recovering from a minor stroke. The only visitors who came into my room were Elena and her husband, Marcus. Elena was an artist. Money had never interested her. Marcus, on the other hand, was a serial entrepreneur with grand ideas and empty promises. Months ago, he started asking for a loan to finance a luxury car rental business. I had refused. Now, nearly $500,000 was gone. The dashboard of my rented car blurred as I sped home, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, heart pounding but mind razor-sharp. I didn't call the police that night. That would have been the amateur move. I knew police reports would dismiss the matter as a civil dispute since Marcus had access to my phone. They would tell me to settle it privately. No. I needed leverage. Something stronger. 2 nights later, I invited Marcus and Elena to dinner. Calm, casual. As if nothing was wrong. Marcus arrived in style, a bright green Porsche 911 GT3 that screamed arrogance. He wore a watch that looked like it cost more than my first home. "Robert. You're looking strong," he said with a swagger. "Stroke healing well, I see." I let him eat and drink my wine, listening as he bragged about his skyrocketing investments and exploding crypto portfolio. He smiled, eyes gleaming with false confidence. When I complimented him, "I'm proud of your sudden success," he laughed, "Scared money makes no money, Robert." His phone sat on the table. When I asked for help with my banking app, claiming it was glitching, I saw a flicker of terror pass over his face. That flicker was the first crack. He fixed the app by wiping transaction notifications, thinking I was old and confused. He was wrong. The next morning, I transformed my dining room into a strategic command center. I hired a private investigator named Kenji, a man of few words and many secrets. "Follow him," I said. "I want to know everything: who he meets, where he spends the night, what he buys." 2 weeks later, Kenji handed me a folder that chilled me to the bone. Marcus hadn't just bought the Porsche. He'd used my stolen funds as a down payment, $200,000, on a penthouse in the city. But here's the catch: he lied on his mortgage application, claiming a 6-figure salary and steady employment. The truth was, he had no job. Bank fraud. A federal crime. His so-called investments? A Ponzi scheme run by a college friend. Marcus wasn't just a victim, he was recruiting others, dragging innocent people into bankruptcy. And then there were the photos. High-resolution shots of Marcus embracing another woman in a downtown hotel suite. Not Elena. That's when I decided I would not just take Marcus to court. I would dismantle his entire existence. Greed. It pulls us into the darkest corners of ourselves. I called Marcus pretending to forget the money transfers. "I probably moved it to offshore bonds and forgot," I said. His relief was audible. Then I told him I wanted to update my will and appointed him power of attorney, effective only if I became incapacitated. I handed him access to a seemingly modest investment portfolio, about $50,000. The catch? That account was under IRS watch because of a clerical error. Any move would trigger a tax audit. He drained it in less than 24 hours. Now armed with proof, I moved in. I sent the bank evidence of his forged documents and falsified income. They immediately triggered the loan acceleration clause. The full mortgage balance was due at once, or the bank would seize the penthouse. I anonymously tipped off the investors Marcus had duped in the Ponzi scheme, tipping off the police. And I laid the entire truth bare to Elena: bank statements, forged signatures, and the photos of his betrayal. She stood still, pale yet fierce. "I'm changing the locks," she said softly. "And I'm calling a divorce lawyer." Marcus was counting on one last moment of glory, a grand launch party for his fake luxury rental empire. I waited. The night arrived with glittering lights, expensive champagne, and a pulsing DJ. Influencers snapped selfies, the city's elite drank to his success. Marcus stood proud in his now dusty tuxedo, the centerpiece of the celebration. Then his phone started ringing. Ignoring it at first, the calls kept coming. When he finally answered, his face paled. Bank officials were freezing his accounts. The Porsche? The bank reported it stolen. Suddenly, a group burst in, a trio of enraged former friends and investors he had defrauded, their eyes blazing. "You stole from us. You liar." The music stopped. The crowd froze. Then, flashing red and blue lights filled the room again. This time, the police came for felonies, bank fraud, investor fraud, crimes with prison time. I stood silently at the balcony, cane in hand, watching them handcuff Marcus. His pleading eyes met mine. "Robert, why didn't you warn me?" I walked down slowly. "Marcus," I said clearly, "you thought old age meant weakness. You were wrong. I reported the mortgage fraud. I tipped off the IRS. I sent the evidence to your investors. And Elena? She's at home, packing your things. She saw the photos. She knows about the other woman." His arrogance crumbled. The proud man was gone, replaced by a scared boy in a ruined tuxedo. "You destroyed my life," he sobbed. "No," I replied. "I just balanced the books." 3 months have passed. Marcus sits in a holding cell awaiting trial. Bail was denied, he's a flight risk. The Porsche was repossessed. The penthouse foreclosed and sold at auction. I sued him in civil court. With no assets left, the court ordered liquidation of his remaining possessions, watches, electronics, clothes. I bought his favorite watch at the police auction, wearing it on rare days while gardening, a quiet reminder that justice lingers even in silence. Elena lives with me again. Heartbroken, yes, but stronger than ever. We're planning our trip to Italy. The money I reclaimed will give her the freedom she deserves. But wait, there's one more twist. Shortly after Marcus's arrest, a strange message arrived on my phone, a photo of a document, marked confidential. It revealed that Marcus's Ponzi scheme was just one branch of a far larger network. The woman in the hotel photos? She was not just a mistress, she was the linchpin of an underground financial ring tied to criminal enterprises across the country. And Elena? Unknowingly, she'd been dragged into deeper secrets, emails and phone calls I hadn't seen. I realized then that the battle was far from over. Bigger players lurked in the shadows, and Marcus may have been the small fish caught in a web much darker and wider than I imagined. That night, I made a choice, to use everything I had learned, all my years of experience, to uncover the bigger truth behind the lies, the money, and the betrayal. Because sometimes, justice is just the beginning of a longer story. If you found the journey through justice and deception gripping, please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. If someone stole your life savings, would you fight back on your own, or would you trust others to bring justice?